Hello, this is Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt of the Christ School of Theology, the graduate school of the Institute of Lutheran Theology. The course you are seeing is a course called Faith, Knowledge, and Reason, and this course deals with some of the philosophical presuppositions and the philosophical underpinnings of the theological tradition. We have worked in this course now from the time of the pre-Socratics. So this is a very wide purview here. The time of the pre-Socratics up until the time of Occam. This series of lectures takes us from the time of Occam to the beginnings of modern philosophy, which we could date with Descartes. There could be some difference of opinion about when to date this beginning of modern philosophy. But Descartes does something that is really quite different than what had been done before. So let us look at this series of lectures as the bridge from the perennial intellectual tradition of the West, the great philosophical theological tradition of the West, up until the time, up to the time of Descartes. All right? Does that sound good? So the name of this series of lectures is called Nominalism, Faith, and the Scientific Revolution. Well, the first thing we have to talk about is the demise of teleology. When we talk about moving from the 14th century to the 17th century, we are talking about a period in which it becomes more and more difficult to find a place for teleology in the world. Now you ask, well, what's teleology? I can say, well, look at all the other lectures back there. There's 72 of them or whatever. But I want to answer that very quickly. Teleology has to do with purpose. And of course, with Aristotle, we had purpose built into the very fabric of nature. You can remember that he had a fourfold causal schema by which he analyzed things. And of course, one of those causes was a final cause. The final cause was the aim of the thing. So the final cause of the little sapling and the acorn that grew into the little sapling, of course, is a full-blown oak tree. And so the oak tree is in nature as the aim, right, of the sapling and the acorn. What would it be like to see the world in this way? We have a very difficult time seeing it in this way because, of course, we stand on the other side of this great fissure from the 14th century to the 17th century. In the High Middle Ages, and I talk about the High Middle Ages as the 13th century, the great medieval synthesis that we identify with Thomas Aquinas' work. In the high medieval synthesis of the 13th century, value and purpose are built into the very fabric of the universe. They're built into cosmology itself. But with the rise of science in the late 16th century, and we'll look at some of this, teleology becomes replaced by a type of mechanism. So teleology, with its final cause that lures things into their actualization through efficient causes, this final cause is seen to have no explanatory value, right? As we begin to look at the universe, peer through the telescope, as we begin to look at the rotations and the way that the orbits of the planets work, and we get to Copernicus' work and Kepler's work and Galileo's work, stars, the sky. When we look at all of these things, it became more and more difficult to find a place for final cause. There is an order, a regularity in things. And this regularity is deeply dependent upon official causality. efficient causality, right? Official causality. Well, efficient causality is our official causality today, right? So as we move through these years, teleology becomes much more suspect as a rather defunct metaphysical explanatory system, right? Teleology becomes gradually replaced by a mechanism, and the place then of value and purpose themselves become problematic. If the universe is actualizing itself according to universal law, and we are somehow part of the universe, then it's very difficult to see how pockets of teleology exist with people in a universe that's non-teleological. Let me say that again, non-teleological. Now, as we move forward, there is merely a world of facts. And in this world of facts, somehow the seemingly purposeful being called man and woman, right, must somehow dwell. So if you can imagine a universe in which there's purpose inside the souls of men and women, and purpose outside the souls of men and women, in the cosmos itself, there would be a type of consonance to that system that we can't even quite apprehend at our time. Because, of course, we all know this. The universe, nature goes on its own, seemingly, right? We, looking at it with scientific eyes, look only at the efficient causal factors that bring about states of affairs in the universe. And we, purposeful beings, now seem really alienated, right? Really strangers here. Beings of purpose in a universe without purpose. This is what is happening as we move to the 17th century. The solution in early modern philosophy was to push to a kind of dualism, where you could still have now the mechanism of nature and somehow the purposeful teleology of men and women, that there would be two regions of being, right? Nature and its mechanism, and then, of course, us in our purposeful living existence. And yet, how do those things go together? How to assert that there is a factual world of matter that is somehow consonant with a purposeful world of spirit? How do you put matter and spirit together? I mean, this is the great question, right? And it was a question for them. And if we think hard enough, it's still a question for us. Now, we might want to give up on the question and say, well, there's no such thing as spirit. Or we might want to follow some of our friends in the philosophy of mind and be eliminativists, to eliminate, right, there we go, to eliminate purposeful teleological explanation and relegate it to explanation in terms of ghosts or something. There is this attempt. Or we might want to reduce this so-called spiritual dimension to some material conditions. But for all of that, we know down deep that there is something deeply and profoundly different about us, or it seems to be, than about that stuff out there. There's no choice out there, right? There's no angst out there. There's no dread out there. There just is out there. There's no meaning out there. In us lies this meaning, and somehow no longer do these things hang together. I am very different than the universe. So we'll be looking, as we get into modern philosophy, how this gets worked out, this dualism between nature and spirit, and the very uneasy and, shall we say, problematic solutions to this problem. So I'm Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt of the Christ School of Theology. Come on right back. We'll have another brief lecture on late medieval nominalism and the movement to modern philosophy. Thank you.